Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And the movie I want to talk about today comes from 1966. This is The Face of Another, directed by Hiroshi Teshigahara and starring the great Japanese actor Tatsuya Nakadai, who we lost earlier in this year, 2025. And this is the third movie in an old DVD box set from Criterion from about 2006. Three films by Teshigahara, which included Pitfall and by far his most famous film, Woman in the Dunes, which both movies I talked about in my previous two videos. Now, this is a further collaboration by Teshigahara with the novelist, screenwriter Kobo Abe, with music by Tora Takamitsu and great cinematography from Hiroshi Sagawa. And this is a story, as you can see from the cover, it's a very unusual story. And that is actually Nakadai behind all those bandages. You can always tell by his eyes. This is a story about a man, I believe he was an engineer, and his face was horribly damaged in a explosion, and so he has to wear bandages. And he is being counseled by this psychiatrist to try to adjust himself to society. But this psychiatrist also seems to be some sort of mad scientist. He's come up with he's gained the ability to make masks that look just like human beings, just like skin. This badly scarred man is going to be the first one. It's going to be the test case, the guinea pig for how somebody could adjust to having the mask and being able to re-enter society, where he will, with the bandages and the accident, he has lost his identity, and now with his face being lost, and now he's going to be giving a second chance to re-enter society with a different identity. His relationship to the real world, and his relationship to society, his relationship to his wife. In the opening scenes of the film, there is the man is at home. He's having a conversation with his wife. He has become, the Nakadai character has become very sarcastic, very cold, rather heartless in the way he treats his wife. It's a very long scene, and I thought it was a very good one. And it has a great payoff towards the end of the film when Nakadai tries to fool his wife with his new identity. So this is a very stylized movie. The psychiatrist's office looks different. Every time we see it, it looks different. The production design here is incredible. The cinematography, as I said earlier, very images that, even though you don't really understand maybe what this movie is trying to get at, you want to look at it because it's so amazing. It's amazing structures and very avant-garde in its approach to visuals. This is not, because you're going to be reminded of, first off, by The Invisible Man with Claude Rains in the early 30s. You might see a little bit of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, a man divided within himself. Eyes Without a Face, The Mask, George Franju French film of the 50s. Seconds, Rock Hudson seeks a new identity. He's tired of who he is. In this case, Nakadai is not, he wants a new identity, but only because he needs one. he needs a mask in order resume his ordinary life. Um, so, the film is very fractured in its storytelling, and in the midst of it, we get almost in the middle of a scene, we have a sudden cutaway to another story, a sub-story, about a very attractive girl uh, whose one side of whose face has been scarred. I think it's intimated that it was from the Nagasaki bomb, but she too has difficulty adjusting to society. It seems her brother is the only person that she can relate to, and we keep cutting back to this story. It's very difficult, I think, to place this secondary story within the larger story of the Nakadai character. So I gotta admit, I did struggle a bit with this film. Unlike the other two films, Pitfall and Woman in the Dunes, we go from the countryside and we come to the city, and we see street scenes, a vast amount of people walking to and fro in a busy Tokyo street and sidewalk. And there's a very strange scene in like a beer hall, and even I think it even says München in the signs, with a singer singing a waltz, a song written by Toru Takamitsu, the composer. In fact, the film opens with a waltz, and if you've seen the other two films and you know some of Takamitsu's works for other directors, it's very startling. We're gonna get a waltz in the beginning, but then some of his more experimental music does turn up throughout the course of the film. So we are sort of at sea a lot of times in the story. I had a hard time grasping exactly what Teshigahara was going for. Now, this was based on a novel by Kobo Abe, but they changed it. Both Teshigahara and Abe changed a whole lot of it from the novel. I was surprised that all of Abe's novels, or at least many of them, were translated into English. I had never heard of him as a novelist. So Face of Another was translated into English, and Abe had great fame as a novelist in Japan especially. So I think this is more of a cold kind of story than the first two stories, and but it has in the relationship between the husband and the wife. I thought this was very, very well done, and I looking at it, I thought there should be more of this, but also the relationship between the psychiatrist played by Miko Hirahira gives a terrific performance as sort of the Dr. Frankenstein character. And the two actors who played man and woman in Woman in the Dunes do have small roles here, as does the star of Pitfall, the first film in the series. He turns up. In fact, he is the subject being used to supply the mask, even though the mask looks nothing like this actor. They stress that it's they're getting the pores, they're taking the texture of his skin. Now, Nakadai, and the other thing I kept thinking about, now again, this is not a realistic, naturalistic movie, but I kept thinking, well, the face is the identity, but as part of the face is the eyes, and Nakadai has piercing eyes. So that was Nakadai. That wasn't some stand-in in these scenes with the bandages where he was doing, a voiceover, because you can always recognize Nakadai's eyes, but also his voice. So when he tries to fool people with the mask, well, they know who he is. People who knew him would recognize his eyes, his voice, and his height. Nakadai was a very unusually tall Japanese man. But overall, this is a film that does reward thought, and you may not get it in the sense of literal Hollywood or commercial filmmaking, but it does give you a lot of food for thought. And I was thinking a lot about the film. When I woke up early this morning, I was thinking about the film. What did this mean? What did that mean? Or going over certain scenes. So I think it can be a rewarding film. As far as what to see first, I think you probably should go chronologically, Pitfall, Woman in the Dunes, and leave Face of Another for the end. Now, the film was well received in Japan, but it was very disappointing in its foreign distribution. In the U.S., where Woman in the Dunes, like many other countries, Woman in the Dunes was a big hit, and with the critics and with the art house film scene, this was not. And this in Canby in the New York Times was the only contemporaneous review I could find. He was very disappointed in it, gave it kind of short shrift as kind of pretentious and indecipherable and very cold. But Teshigahara and Kobayabe did make one more film, and I think, I didn't write it down here, but it was the story Man Without a Map. I think it was also called, had some other titles. That would have been the fourth one, made a couple years after Face of Another. But that has evidently is in some sort of rights issue, and it's not available anywhere. I don't think it's ever been available in the U.S. I would love to see it. So for Teshigahara, his father, as I mentioned in my last couple videos, Teshigahara's father had a huge arts institution, and he was also a great artist of floral designs and tea ceremonies, and very avant-garde, very experimental. And Hiroshi felt obligated to help out because it was sort of a family business. So his father was getting old. He divided the duties with Teshigahara's sister, but then his father died, so he felt obligated to take over the institute and its administrative duties, but he also was obligated to create as the sort of master of this institute. And you can see some in the James Quant visual essay on Man Without a Face, which is indispensable. You can see some of the sculptures, because Teshigahara went into all kinds of different arts, but his bamboo sculptures really are mind-blowing. And then Teshigahara did make a great documentary. It's almost silent, as I recall it, and of Antonio Gaudi, who in Barcelona, who has some of the most astonishing-looking buildings you're ever going to see. And then he did come back later in his life, in the late 90s, early 2000s, to make 3 more films. As for Kobayabe, he went into theater, very experimental theater. There's an interview with Teshigahara where he says he went to see one of his theater works, hoping that there would be something there that he would want to make a film. And also one of Abe's books that was very popular, novels, but Teshigahara thought it was a little bit too dense in order to make a film. The composer Toru Takemitsu, he was one of the great composers of Japanese films, Harakiri, I think he scored Ron, so some of the great Japanese directors of that era he did work with. So this has been a lot of fun. This is my last video of 2025. I'll have a video that I'm going to release in 2026 when I'm celebrating my 5th year on YouTube, and also it will be my 500th video. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.